Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Jimenez, and welcome to the History of Educational Technology Primer. The goal of this primer is to give you some foundational information before you look at the History of Educational Technology video that you'll have as part of this week's assignment. The goal of this primer is really to help you understand how we look at the terms educational technology, and also to kind of give you a sense of the vast history of educational technology from its most humble of beginnings, and giving you a different perspective of all the different things that could be educational technology. So before we do anything else, let me just go to our next slide. And I want to just kind of help level set here, because when you look at the literature sometimes, you may see the term educational technology, but you may see other variant terms that might seem a little confusing at first. But all these different terms, when you look at them collectively, they all are referring to the same thing, and that is educational technology. Educational technology has a very long history. So in the past, you may have seen or will see articles that you may research in this class or in others. You may see terms such as instructional media, of course, educational technology, instructional technology, as well as information and communication technologies, also referred to as ICTs. ICTs and all these other terms really are all the same thing. They're all referring to some sort of technology that was used to support the learning function. Learning happens based on good pedagogical design. Technology exists to support that learning. And that's what educational technology is all about in its most simplest and basic form. But it's important for us to understand the context of what do we mean by education and technology. So when we look at some of the definitions that are out there, and for the purposes of this weekend, for this course, Spector defines education as a process. It's the process of improving one's knowledge and performance, and really understanding through a systematic and sustained effort. So what this is suggesting is that education is an active process. It's about growing, it's about evolving, it's about enhancing one's understanding of a topic, of a subject, of a task or function. And the fact is, it's all about that active learning component. It's not passive. Education is active, and it can be a process. It's not just about a degree or a course. It's about the process of learning. Now, that might seem very straightforward, but when you look at technology, when people think of technology, the first thing they may probably think about are things such as computers, phones, tablets, little robots, and whatnot. But technology goes far beyond that. In its most simplest and basic form, as shared with us by the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, technology is seen as the practical application of knowledge in a particular area. It is a capability given by the practical application of knowledge. Now, this is interesting because notice that there aren't any technical or mechanical elements mentioned in this definition of technology. This is important because technology is so much more than mechanical or computerized elements. Technology is also seen as a means of accomplishing a task using some sort of technical process, method, or knowledge. Now, if you think about it, we use the computer to support learning. We use our phones and tablets. We may also use robotics and coding to help us engage students in developing an understanding and knowledge of different topics, subjects, etc. But there are many other technologies that are out there that help us to accomplish some sort of task or process that are not necessarily mechanical. And this is an important piece because these are all specialized aspects of a particular field or endeavor. It's specific to a function. In this case, when we talk about technology, right, there's technologies that have a specific endeavor, such as, for example, refrigerators. Refrigerators are a technology. What do? They preserve food. It's a technology, right? A car is a technology. Prior to that, the horse and buggy was a technology. The wheel. All these things are technologies because they help people to perform a specific task or process. Now, when we combine the words education and technology together, we look at the overall term of educational technology. Now, educational technology has evolved as a definition over time. One of the more recent ones that's provided to us by the Association of Educational Communication and Technology, or the AECT organization, is that educational technology is defined as a study and ethical practice of facilitating learning and improving performance by creating, using, and managing appropriate technological processes and resources. I want to highlight the managing appropriate technological processes, because one of the things that I will repeat over and over again in this course is that educational technology should always be used in the context of supporting learning and not the other way around. You shouldn't just introduce a technology for the sake of using it versus let's actually look at what our learning goals, learning objectives are for a activity, a session, a course, whatever it is that you're designing, right? And then you ask yourself, what technologies can we use to support the learning? That's what educational technology is about. But there's also an ethical component to it. There's a moral implication. We want to use technologies that are going to help people, not harm them. Help them in the learning process, help them to grow, to improve, and to manage these resources effectively. So these elements of this definition are aspects that we're going to be studying throughout the course this semester. And again, in its most simplest form, educational technology is about supporting the learning function in an ethical way through the process and technologies afforded to us. Also keep in mind that Spector also looked at the same definition of educational technology and simplified it and said that really educational technology involves the disciplined application of knowledge for the purpose of improving learning, instruction, and performance. And that's why you're here in this master's program. You're here to learn how you can use these tools, these resources to support the application of knowledge creation, knowledge formation, and improve learning and improve the lives of our students overall. But with that, it's important for us to understand that from a historical perspective, educational technology has been around for a very long time. Centuries, as a matter of fact. Now, the video that you're going to see after this is going to focus on since the 1800s to the present, and it may give you the thought and process of, well, educational technologies has been around since the 1800s, but that's actually not true. Educational technology, in its most simplest form, is any tool that we can use to support the learning function, to communicate information to learners, to help people grow and learn. Well, when you apply that definition from a historical perspective, you realize that in its most earliest form, an educational technology that we can identify is caveman paintings. Regardless of where it was throughout the world, people were able to communicate information with each other through oral histories, and eventually that information was transcribed through pictograms on caveman or cavewoman paintings that are found in caves. This is probably one of the earliest forms of education technology that we can talk about, as well as cuneiform tablets, clay tablets, where people can transcribe information, stories, histories, key information that they can then impart and share with others. So these are all forms of educational technology. In addition, when you look at places such as Egypt and other parts of the ancient world where hieroglyphs and other writings were also presented in buildings and structures throughout the ancient world, Stories were communicated, ideas, concepts, knowledge, and information. All of this was communicated through the use of these hieroglyphs and writings. That eventually gave way to tools such as the scrolls or papyrus. Again, paper. Paper in and of itself is a technology, which is probably an interesting perspective when you think about it, because prior to paper, you didn't really have a way of keeping things, at least in perpetuity. And paper, papyrus, the cave paintings helped us to do that. And eventually, that led to the rise of additional tools, including books, people making books, scribing information. This is a technology because this was able to help spread the knowledge of others across vast audiences. And tools such as the abacus helped us to perform calculations that previously probably would have required us counting fingers, maybe drawing numbers or lines in the sand. The abacus is a technology because it helps us to perform more complex more complex calculations. And that's information that helps us to grow and perform even greater, more complex mathematical equations over time. These tools are all foundational tools that helped learners to gain new perspectives. And these tools continue to evolve and have evolved throughout the ages into some of the digital tools and resources and apps that we use today. So technology is really about change. The technology is going to evolve. When you look at the history of educational technology in our next video, you're going to see that there have been numerous implementations of educational technologies throughout history. And they change depending on the need, depending on the technology available, depending on the use and application for it. All these things evolve over time. And therefore, when we think about educational technology, it's all about change. People change what they do in a society, and technology will continue to change to help us and help us change what we do. So when we think about educational technology, as designers of learning, as educational technologists, we should always be flexible in our thinking and willing to revisit, revise, and consider new ideas. Just because we used to do something with a video 10 years ago, it doesn't mean that we can't evolve that solution using an app, a robot, a drone, virtual reality, or any other technology, right? But it has to make sense. And just because the technology is old doesn't make it irrelevant. This is why we have to always think about ourselves as being cutting edge, doing new things, and changing with the times. It doesn't mean that we have to throw out all that we've learned in the past. What it means is we need to consider, can these new technologies help us to make an improvement in how we are helping our students to learn? That's the question that you should be asking yourself throughout this course and beyond. So with that, thank you everyone for attending, and I hope this primer gave you some food for thought, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts about the history of education technology in our next video. Thanks everyone for joining. We'll talk soon.